Good morning. Hey everyone, good morning. I'm Stacy. This is Walking in My Shoes and we're Loving My Veteran. Um, just gonna have another swallow of coffee here real quick. Today's topic, we're back to rights. We have a few more days of this in our series on rights. Is the right to change and grow. It's a fabulous thought process that we have to go through as we have that right to grow and change as humans and individuals, and as thus our relationship will grow and change. Just a couple of things, real quick. Next month, we are doing Love is in the Air, and it is on creating healthy relationships. There is no such thing as normal, so I don't want to get into this normal relationship because there is no such thing. Google it, I promise you, it doesn't exist. But we're going to do a series on all next month on Love is in the Air, and it is on how to grow a healthy relationship, not only with our veteran but with ourselves. And it's a very interesting series as we get into that next month going forward. Don't forget, also, we're going to start a podcast next month. I'm so excited. Thank you all again for your support and where we are in our journeys. Um, there are victories that we all experience every day. So today we're going to talk about that right to change and grow. I watch so often and I hear so often we talk about, I wish things were the way they were. I wish things were the way they used to be. I wish things were that way. That's not healthy. It's not healthy at all. And it's been hard for me personally to accept that things aren't healthy when we don't grow. Things aren't healthy when we don't change. Go back to just a simple thing of, if you plant a tree and that tree always stayed 2 foot tall and never bared oranges, if you did an orange tree, or never bared fruit, or never provided shade. um, I live in South Georgia where timber is a big deal. If all of the pine trees stayed 2 feet, we wouldn't have like anything. And if you think about it, no power poles, no paper, no pallets, just things we use in life, no building construction boards, no anything. It is when those pine trees grow to 40 feet plus that we get that. So we have that right. Everybody has that right to change and grow. And also often we'll hear our family say, "Well, you're not the person you used to be." Nope, I'm not. I'm excited to be able to say, "No, I'm not the person I used to be," because my life experiences have caused me to change and grow. And for a long time, I couldn't embrace that. I couldn't embrace that. I needed to be stuck where I was. And when you become stuck where you are, your situation doesn't evolve. Your situation doesn't grow. Your situation doesn't get better. You wake up 10 years down the road and you're like, what the heck am I still doing here? Why are things the way they were? I go back to my last marriage, almost 28 years. 28 years. And the same issues that I had early on were the same issues I had 28 years later, because I didn't allow myself that right to change and grow. I stayed stuck in where I was. Woody and I, when we first got in EMS, worked together on an ambulance. And then as our careers bloomed some, I became a manager and a supervisor. But at the bottom line, I wasn't in the office very much managing and supervising. Actually, I was, but it was at night and on my off days. Good morning, Stephanie. I was on my off days, and I was sitting here because it was so important that I didn't change or grow, that I stayed on that truck, that I was always his partner, that I was this. And I realized that as a result, I was missing out on a lot. I was missing out on so much just in my personal life, in changing and growing, that I always went back to being that paramedic partner. That I always went back to just being that. And I didn't grow my career. I didn't grow as a paramedic. I didn't grow as a person. It was very late in our 28-year marriage that I decided I was changing jobs. And it was the first time, as he made it very clear, we were still married, in 15 years that we had not worked together. In 15 years that we had not been together in the same place. When there were calls where I had scheduled him as his boss with other people, he would call me and he would nut up like the whole ride. Hey, you need to be on the ambulance. Hey. I didn't want to hear it. I had a job, and as a result, him calling me and pulling me back didn't allow me to grow. It didn't allow me as an individual to grow just in my career. So late on, I changed jobs. I didn't work at the same place with him. And when I would come home, he would be livid. I mean, like, just livid. Sorry, I got to turn my phone off. He would be livid because we had two different jobs. I don't know how to do this paperwork. You're going to have to show me how to use a computer. I don't even know how to use a computer. You work for a different company than I do. And I went on to become an instructor and all these other things that I really wanted to do in my life that I thought were important, and they were. But I didn't allow myself that right to change and grow. And I look back and I'm thinking, where could I have been had I have done that? You know? Morning. Where could I have been if I had done that? You have that right to change and grow. When you don't change and grow in your relationship with yourself, first of all, you've got to become so much stronger. Yeah, we do. We have to work as that group. We have to become as individuals so much stronger first. You know, I was talking to Michelle this morning and I said, you know, Michelle, we were talking about this subject, and I said, I would be a much better parent today at 54 than I was at 19. Okay? I would be a much better parent today at 54 than I was at 19. I mean, does it scare me that my kid would graduate from high school and I'd be in my 70s? Well, yeah, but just what I have to do right now is I would be a much better person as a parent because I have learned so much along the way. I've learned what's important. I've learned what I will and will not live with. I've learned what does and does not matter. So yeah, I would be a much better parent now than I was then because I had to learn to change and grow. I have done so much recently in growing over this past year when I lost my job because I got sick. I've learned to grow and learn more about me than I ever thought was humanly possible. And I've had to allow myself that right. I wish I had to allow myself that right to be able to change and grow. And that was something that was very important to me, that I had to learn to do that. And so we have that right. We have that right to change and grow. Okay, and we oftentimes don't do that. We oftentimes don't allow ourselves to do that. So as we start to learn more about ourselves and become better in who we are as individuals, and we become better for ourselves, then our relationship with our veteran becomes better. Okay? I know more about my veteran because I have learned more about PTSD and how it affects him. Okay? So as a result, I've learned to change and grow in how I handle things. I've learned to change and grow on what I will and will not allow in my relation, for me personally. Not that I'm talking about in this big issue of life here, that I'm not going to let you do this and I'm not going to let you do that and I'm not going to allow you to do that, because we all have a right to do what we want to do, okay? We all have that right to do what we want to do in our life. The problem becomes when we don't change and grow, then our values stay in this locked up situation, and our values don't allow us to evolve. So, for instance, the the rage that happens, okay? I'm not letting that get into my life anymore. Right? If he wants to be in this situation, Gerald, I really think you need to get off of this thread. Um, it's not acceptable, okay? It is just not acceptable. Thank you. Um, we're not dealing with this on the side here. So you need to get off this thread and I'll get somebody to block you, one of our admins. Can y'all go in and block this gentleman? Thank you so much. Um, Leah, no, I have not seen your email, but I will look at it in just a minute. Um, sorry, we're getting off topic here. In our changing and growing that we have to do, and we have that right to be able to do that, that's going to set better boundaries in our relationship going forward. What are you willing to accept? What are you not willing to accept? When we are inexperienced and younger and new, and I'm not talking about age, I'm talking about in our relationships, we allow things to happen because we don't want to rock the boat necessarily. Okay, we don't want to rock that boat. And I think that as we go forward, we grow in what we will and will not allow. And so, we all talk about walking on eggshells. We don't have to do that. As we change and grow and we become stronger in who we are, the eggshells don't matter anymore. You can't walk on those eggshells, because if you walk on those eggshells, your relationship with your veteran's not going to change and grow. If you were forever walking on those same eggshells every day and afraid to say what's on your mind and afraid to talk about what's important and afraid to talk about how you feel, all these rights that we already established that they have and that we have, when you do that, your relationship isn't going to grow. You're going to find yourself 15 years, and we see it all the time in all of these groups. There are women and men on there that say, I am in the same place I've been for the last 15 years. Okay, if that's what you choose. But if we don't allow ourselves to change and grow and our relationship to change and grow and evolve, and we have to learn to evolve together. But if we don't allow that to happen and we don't realize that that's a right that we have, we're going to wake up and be in the same place that we were 15 years ago. I did it. 28 years later, I was in the exact same place and I was miserable. I'm blessed. Yeah, you are on your way to do that now, sister. I am so proud of you, Sonny. I'm blessed because I did this. I did this. I'm doing like 3 things at one time, y'all. I did this. It was I'm trying to do 2 things. Sorry, y'all. Thank you. Sorry. I did this. I did this. I didn't allow things to change and grow. I didn't allow myself to change and grow. I didn't allow that, and I'm not going to wake up in the same situation that I was in 28 years down the road because I didn't allow myself to do that. I got a little distracted. I was blocking Jared. We're not going to talk about veterans being messed up in the head. We're not bashing our veterans on this page. Sorry. Um, but I had to do that. I woke up 28 years later in the same space I was in. How the heck are you going to do that? You're not changing and growing if you wake up in the same space you were in 28 years later and you're just as miserable now as you were 28 years down the road. And I'm not saying leave them. That is never, ever, ever my advice. Ever. You're in danger? Absolutely. You're in physical danger? Absolutely. Find help. We got that. But as far as changing and growing, we take it out on ourselves. And when we start to change and grow, when we start to change and grow, other things change and grow as well. Think about that. How many times have you seen an empty field? Okay? How many times have you seen an empty field where they've cut all the grass down? Right? And there's barren spots in that field. And then you come back 10 years later and nobody's touched it. It is all grown up. I moved back to a neighborhood I lived in 20 years ago, right? And we're riding down the road and I'm like, wow, like the house across the street, it's like completely overgrown. The house we used to live in is completely overgrown. Because things grow over time. Plants replant themselves. Y'all grow a strawberry, that full strawberry will grow everywhere, okay? It'll grow everywhere if you let it. Bamboo will grow everywhere if you don't control it. Weeds will grow everywhere. So growth happens, change is good. And you have to do that. You have to change and grow. Otherwise, you're still the barren field. And it's important that we understand that we have that right. We have that right. We have that right to change and grow. It is important that you understand self-preservation comes from growth. If you're not growing, you're dead. If your relationship isn't growing, it becomes dead. If you don't allow yourself to grow, your relationship becomes dead. If you don't allow yourself to change and adapt when you need to, things become dead. If we didn't allow adaptation for what we need, we'd all be driving like Henry Ford's Model Ts. Right? We'd still be in that little old Model T Ford riding around. When you look at the history and the evolution of the car, Henry Ford, who was at the time the greatest automobile manufacturer in the world, initially almost lost everything because he refused to change the Model T. He was selling more cars than anybody, than all of his competitors combined for a very long time. But he refused to change the Model T. For all these years, he refused to change it. He didn't want it to go faster. He didn't want better compression. He didn't want all of these things. He didn't want a better ride because it was working, so why change it? But people did. And they evolved and their life evolved. And he didn't keep up with it and he almost lost everything because of that. He almost lost everything because of that. And that's where we are when we don't allow change and growth in ourselves. Because the industry was changing around him, right? The whole industry was changing around him. But he couldn't get past the fact he designed that car first, and that was the first car of its kind, and it was going to be the one, and he wasn't willing to make the change or grow in his vision, so he almost lost everything. And what happens with us? We don't allow change and we don't allow growth in ourselves. So therefore, we can't take it into our relationship and we stay stagnant and our relationship dies. When we learn more about PTSD, when we learn more about relationships, when we learn more about good communication skills, when we learn more about setting appropriate boundaries, when we learn how to talk to our veterans and tell them we're going to walk beside you and you matter, and we learn all these things, our relationship will grow. And also often, and Leah, this is not about you because you've tried everything you can, and I know that personally. And sometimes you just have to draw that line. Leah's story is totally different than most because I've never seen anybody fight so hard for hers. Okay? But he was stuck in that place and he would not change or grow no matter what she did. But when you start to take those steps and you really, really work at taking those steps for you individually, and then that step moves into your relationship with your veteran or with your spouse or with your children, okay? When all that matters and that change in you starts to, first of all, nobody likes change, okay? Nobody likes change, so you're going to meet that resistance in the beginning. But when they see you making changes and the way you respond to them changes and the way that you talk to them changes, their response is different back to you because every action has a reaction. And if you bring in, insanity is doing the same stuff day after day and expecting different results. Unless you do the other insanity, which I don't recommend because I about died when I did it for a very long time. But Billy Banks' insanity is nuts. But insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, day after day, and expecting different results. So if you're not changing and you're not growing, and then you don't understand why 15 years later you're sitting in the exact same situation you were in, that's because you chose not to grow. And I hate because I feel like so many times that I'm coming down and I'm saying it's all you, it's all you, it's all you, it's all you, it's all you. No, it's not all you. It's not all you. But I'm going to tell you this. And I learned more from Carl, and that really just annoys me, okay? But you can't be good for anybody else if you're not good for yourself. And let me tell you one other thing. Nobody on this earth loves you more than you love yourself. And that needs to become your mindset. It doesn't mean arrogance. It means that you have to love yourself. You have to like the person you wake up to in the morning in the mirror. You have to like that person. And if you don't like the person you're waking up to in the mirror, the only person who can change that is you. That is not putting blame on anybody. That is an actual fact, and I had to learn it the hard way. I didn't like who I was. There are still days I don't like parts of me. And I think the realization came when it was sad, and I ended up with a few autoimmune disorders where my body is actually attacking me from the inside out. And my answer was, and it was serious, it wasn't a joke. My answer was, I don't like me anymore, so why should my body like me? I felt so down that I didn't feel like I was worth it, so why the heck should my body like me? I put myself down for so long and said I was so bad and said I was so horrible and this and that and the other. If I didn't like me, why should the rest of me like me? So my immune system kicked in and said, well, girlfriend doesn't like herself, let me just eat her up from the inside out. And I know that's a weird rationale to use, but that's the rationale you have to have. Only person who's going to like you is you first. And if you can't look in that mirror and say, I like me today, I love me today, I'm important today, I matter today. If you can't do that, nothing else will ever work. And that's not about changing your relationship. That's about learning to change how you view you. Because if you don't love yourself, nobody else is going to. If you're not good for you, you can't be good for anybody else. Those are just facts. And it's not coming against anybody. It is just a fact. It is learning how to love ourselves, because when we love ourselves and when we like ourselves, we can do anything. Don't ever question yourself. Allow yourself that right to change and grow. Allow yourself to look at past experiences and say, you know what, this didn't work for me. I didn't like it when I did this. And grow from it. For crying out loud, I go back to my younger years. There were days that I could get up and mix a whiskey sour for breakfast and party half the night. And the next morning, I felt like doo-doo. And I realized that wasn't the lifestyle that an adult that needed to function had to have. And so I don't mix the whiskey sours for breakfast anymore. I don't party till the middle of the night anymore. Not because I don't mind going to a good party on occasion, but because as I changed and I grew and I evolved and I realized that you can't live the 18, 19, 20, I'm supposed to be 21. No, I was before that. I was grandfathered into the drinking age. That's how old I am. I could drink at 18. So from 18 years old on, I could drink legally. You can't live that lifestyle. You can't do that. How many of us thought, and look at the world around you. How many people in the world around you thought that the bigger house, the nicer cars, the nicer clothes were going to buy your happiness? So we all worked 2 jobs, went out like a bunch of fools. They got interest-only loans. The housing market collapsed. They're all sitting on the streets now because they've all been evicted. You think that those people, when they bought those houses, knew then what they know now they would have done it again? No. How many times do we say, if I would have known now what I knew then, I'd have a totally different life. Not that I don't like the life I have now, because I love the life I have now. I love the man that I'm with now. And I think we all go through this journey to get to where we are now. But when you wake up 28 years later and you're in the same spot you were because you didn't allow yourself to change and grow, the heck do you think's going to happen? The heck do you think is going to happen? You become better at who you are by changing and growing. Now, if we didn't change and grow, we'd all be babbling and wearing diapers. Eventually, I guess when you get old, you go back to that. But we'd all be babbling and wearing diapers. But we changed and we grew and we learned to talk and we learned to walk and we learned to write and we learned to communicate. That's all growth. That's all growth. And it was positive for us. Well, sort of. My dad was, didn't let me walk out of line too far, but it was positive. And it was positive for me for him not to let me walk out of line. But changing and growing are something we're allowed to do. We have that right, and we should exercise that right. And it isn't just about your relationship. If you don't change and grow as individuals, as yourself, nothing else is ever going to get better. Nothing else will ever get better. And that's where our strength comes from. That's what we do. We change and we grow and we evolve. And the goal is to evolve together with our veteran and our spouse and our family and our children. Hardest thing my mother ever had to do, and she'll tell you this, is I used my mother, even as an adult, as a personal ATM. And I didn't hold myself accountable for anything, right? So Woody and I had bought this van. We didn't have a lot of money. We spent it on other things other than like bills because I didn't know how to prioritize at the time. So we spent it on other things. And I can remember them coming to pick up the van or getting ready to. And I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm desperate. I'm sorry. And the boys need, and they're going to repossess the van. And my dad was on the other line. And I could hear my dad say, How much do you need? And my mother looked at him and said, Not this time, Lucas. And she said, Stacy, I love you, but I'm sorry. You have to grow up. And she hung up the phone. And it was at that moment that she was right. I had to grow up. I had to change what I was doing. I had to grow up. Y'all, I'm 50 some years old. My kids are in their 30s. And they still think of me as an ATM. I have a lot of tattoos, that's true. But I do not have ATM tattooed across my forehead. And it took me a long time. And I still give them some, and I regret it every time, and so I'm not anymore. But that's growth. It's not being ugly when I say, no, I'm done. I don't have it. I'm not giving it to you anymore. Because it forces them to change and grow. And sometimes change and growth is not pretty. Sometimes change and growth is painful. But the change allows you to grow. Remember the old word growing pains? And I don't know how many of you see, because there's some of us in this group that are older than others, but I can remember like when you took your kids to the doctor and their joints kind of hurt, and my nana would say, oh, they're not really hurt, they're growing pains, right? And I remember them saying that at a certain age, when, especially boys, when they get this massive growth spurt, it's just growing pains. Well, I took the kids to the doctor. What did the doctor say? It's growing pains. Sometimes with growth there is pain. Sometimes with change there is pain. But at the end, when you get through that stage, it is better. It is better. Sometimes you have to take a step back to go forward. And it is better. So all I'm telling y'all is growth and change are a good thing. Don't wake up in the same place you were 15 years down the road and say, what the heck? Nothing is any better. We haven't changed at all. We're still doing this. I'm still miserable. If you look in the mirror today and you don't like what you see and you don't think this is what they are, you have a lot of pain, baby. And you don't like who you are, only you can change that. So look in the mirror and you make that change. It's an old Michael Jackson song. Yeah, I'm not singing for y'all because it's sad when I sing. That's what I'm talking about. It's just change and growth and the positive things that we can do. A couple other things real quick. Tomorrow we're going to talk about, we have the right to be healthy, playful. It's kind of fun. We don't have to live, as we get older, we don't have to live in this very structured world. We can go out and have fun. And we have that right. We have that right to be healthy. And that means healthy physically, that means healthy mentally, that means healthy spiritually. We have that right. And again, you got to be able to do those things. Because if you're not right, nothing else is going to be right. Stephanie will be on today. Today is Wednesday. Stephanie will be on tonight about 6:30, and I love them. Nakia did a great video last night, so it is on in the group if you did not see it live. And I'll be honest, I didn't watch all of it till 5 o'clock this morning. Sorry. Go on and watch her video as well. Lots of growth coming up. Of course, next month, like I said, we're doing Love is in the Air. It's building loving and lasting relationships. We're going to do that around this. Got some big news coming up. I'll share that. I have a meeting at 3 o'clock today to be able to share that with all of y'all. I'm going to open up to do some one-on-ones again. So if you need some one-on-one, just let me know. And Carl's going to walk by us, as he always does. We're going to let y'all go. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran. Have a blessed day.